Hello, this is Transfer Talk. Harry Kane remains a Tottenham player with a gap in valuation. The issue between Bayern Munich and Tottenham. Will the German champions get their target? We'll discuss that and all the big stories of the day. Plus, Carla Ward is with us. She's watching England against China at the Women's World Cup, which has just kicked off this second. Not happening at Chelsea. Could Romelu Lukaku's time at the club be over? We're joined by Italian football experts Mina Rizzucchi and Nicky Bandini in about 20 minutes' time. Rasmus Højlund's move to Manchester United is getting closer as he heads to the UK for a medical. There'll be updates from Adelaide to come, but we kick off the show with Harry Kane. A significant gap in valuation remains between Bayern Munich and Tottenham, believed to be about £20 million difference. The two clubs held talks in London yesterday discussing a potential move for the striker. It's our understanding Bayern are ready to pay a maximum of £85 million, but Tottenham want at least £100 million. James, give us the background to this big story.
Well, we know that Kane has got 1 year left on his contract and he's not going to sign a new deal with Spurs this summer. Yesterday, Bayern Munich and Tottenham representatives met in London. They had lunch. The Bayern delegation have headed back now to Munich, but negotiations are ongoing. The dialogue remains open despite there still being two sides with two different valuations of the players. So no deal was able to be struck yesterday. Bayern, they're ready to pay up to €100 million for Kane, which would be €90 million up front and £10 million in performance-related add-ons. But Spurs want £100 million. So at the moment, if you do the maths, there's a disparity in the figures of around £15 to £20 million. Sky Germany are reporting that Bayern want to get this deal done this week, but there is still a significant gap between where the two clubs are at the moment. And Kane, he remains open to speaking formally to Bayern Munich if Spurs do manage to agree this deal. Bayern are convinced he wants to join them. And interestingly, Tottenham are going to insist on a buyback clause if they do indeed sell him to Bayern Munich and if Kane is to return to the Premier League. So this year, what was slightly different from 2 years ago, Kane had reported back to pre-season on time. He was part of the tour. This is something which he didn't do. He didn't come back on time in 2021 when he was heavily linked with that move to Man City. But should no move take place, at the moment it doesn't look like it's imminent, then he's in line to play for Spurs next weekend against Brentford in their opening Premier League game.
Sam, as these days go by and weeks go by, is it looking more likely or less likely that Kane will join Bayern Munich?
I think it's more likely. You can tell that Bayern are the clear favourites, even though PSG have shown interest. I think Tottenham are quite reluctant. They don't necessarily want to sell Kane, but obviously because he's made it quite clear that he's not going to sign a new contract, but he's willing to stay at the club to see out the rest of his contract. It does put them in an awkward situation. They do want upwards of £100 million, and Bayern have said that they are keen on, breaking their record of signing a player. I think it's going to happen quite soon because I'm sure that Spurs do want to bring in a Kane replacement, even though they've got a few players there. But at the same time, it's clear that he wants a new challenge and they need to get it done.
I'm just going to ask everybody at home who's watching to get in touch on Twitter, #TransferTalk, just to say if Harry Kane does leave Tottenham, how would Tottenham go about replacing him? All of those goals that he scores, of course, but we get it before I read some of those out. James, does it seem to suit every party, Tottenham, Bayern Munich and Kane, that this is sorted out sooner rather than later?
I think so, and we refer back to Ange Postecoglou's comments 2 weeks ago when he said we can't afford for this saga to go on for too long. Whilst reluctant to give a hard deadline, I think it's clear that he wants it dealt with sooner rather than later. And that was 2 weeks ago he spoke about that. There's still no resolution. Spurs have got their opening game of the season next Sunday. It's not been a brilliant pre-season because of the opposition they've played against, because of the conditions in some of the countries they played in.
One was rained off, wasn't it?
And that was the issue, the game against Leicester.
We'll come back to you, James. We've got to get to Carla Ward straight away because there's been an early goal. Is it England or China, Carla?
It's Russo. She's had a couple of frustrating games, and to be fair, she's come up trumps there. She's done brilliantly well. It's dropped to her. She's cleanly connected with it, and 1-0.
And so 1-0 to England there. It's a great start. And again, goals have been a problem. An early one here will certainly help. But we were talking about no one could work out the formation. With about 5 minutes gone, not even, Have you been able to work it out yet?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. She's gone 3 at the back, 3-5-2. But the interesting piece is Rach Daly's kept at left wing back.
Okay.
And they've moved Lauren Hemp as a front two with Russo. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. It's first shot on target, but Russo will be delighted. That'll give her a lot of confidence now leading into the rest of the game.
Great start for England. Also, great start for Denmark, by the way, because they're playing Haiti right now, and Denmark have taken an early lead as well, although that is being checked as we speak. It's been given, so Denmark and England are both 1-0 up. Right, let's get back to our Harry Kane chat. And sorry, James, we did understandably interrupt you there for that England goal. But we were going through why it's so important that this deal is either done or off completely as quickly as possible.
It has to be done quickly because Ange Postecoglou has had a nightmare pre-season, really. They've struggled to bring players in. He's been desperate to bring in at least one centre-back. That's not happened quite yet. But I think what is crucial here, it's Spurs and their negotiation strategy, because do they really want to let this play out until the end of August, a few games into the Premier League season, just to get this 15 to 20 million pounds they're looking for? Or does the amount of damage this is doing to the pre-season and Ange Postecoglou's first couple of months in charge mean that it's better for all parties if they get it done? I think Harry Kane himself, as a professional, would want to have a bit of security and a bit of knowledge about where his future's heading. So I think in an ideal world, especially for the manager, Ange Postecoglou, he wants to know what's happening now. But Spurs, I think, deep down still think, and they're still hoping they can find some sort of way to keep Harry Kane at Spurs. But I don't think he's anywhere close to signing a new contract.
Yeah, there's got quite a few tweets coming in. I quite like this one from Gary. He says, if Kane goes, it would need to be Matisse Tell, who's currently a Bayern Munich player, but that would be one for the future. And they should also get Kolo Muani for the present. He, of course, was on Manchester United's list, but now that Højlund's going there, he might be a possibility. Gary also says Lautaro Martinez would be the wish, but he says that would be unlikely. And Riley says that personally, if Kane leaves, he doesn't think that they will actually replace him this summer. They think that Richarlison will just play up front in his place instead. Keep these coming in for the next couple of minutes, because Sam, I'm going to ask you that question. Do you think that Tottenham do need to go into the market to replace him, or is the replacement there already?
I think they need to go into the market, but they don't need to be impatient with, trying to find a striker that's just going to hit the ground running, because as you've seen on the market, it's going to cost a lot of money. Muani, I think Manchester United were priced out because they were asking for upwards of 90 million. You see other strikers that have been linked with moves away. If they've scored over 15 goals in any league, it's going to be upwards of 80 or 70 million. And they do have Richarlison, who has looked good under Postecoglou and is the type of striker that thrives in his system. They have been linked with Brennan Johnson, who, did really well for Nottingham Forest. He's really young, a versatile forward as well. He scored 10 goals in all competitions last season. He's not the finished article, but I think if you have a rotation of him and Richarlison up front, I think that would be really good for Postecoglou as well. And Forest do have 4 other strikers in their ranks, so it's not necessarily that they need him. Even though he was probably one of their best players, I think that they could come to some sort of agreement, but it does depend on how long this deal drags on for.
Yeah, another Tottenham fan saying that they'd like to see Jonathan David come in if Kane goes. As a brilliant young talent who adapt well to the Premier League. By the way, I said that Denmark were 1-0 up and it had gone to VAR. VAR actually ruled it out, so it's still 0-0 between Haiti and Denmark. But crucially, England are still 1-0 up against China after that goal after just 4 minutes. Right, to Manchester United, because Rasmus Højlund is expected in the UK today to have a medical with the club. Once completed, he'll sign off on a 5-year contract with the option of a further 12 months. United will pay Atalanta £64 million up front, plus £8 million in performance-related add-ons. So when he gets this deal done and goes to Old Trafford, Sam, is he a guaranteed starter?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you see the urgency of them trying to get him in before their next pre-season games, it looks like they want him to, kind of get up to speed with what Ten Hag wants from him, the team, the Premier League as well. You don't spend that type of money for a striker when you've been missing that for the previous season and not want him to start. But I do think that because of what we've seen during pre-season with Sancho going in the false 9 and doing quite well, especially against Dortmund, he was enjoying himself there, he was linking up play, he was driving forward, and Rashford could do that job as well. I think if Højlund doesn't, acclimatise as well as Ten Hag would want him to, I don't think he's going to have that pressure to, play every single game if it's not working. But the type of striker he is and the type of striker Ten Hag wants, I think it could work quite early.
So it sounds like Sam says this type of striker that they need. James, what does he add in that department?
We had a really promising first season in Serie A. The stats wouldn't quite tell you the full story because they showed immense potential that he has. And I think Manchester United came into this window thinking that in an ideal world Harry Kane would be the striker, or maybe Victor Osimhen, but because of financial constraints, they simply, at this moment in time, can't make either of those deals work. So it meant that they had to look at a player with potential like Højlund, and they simply needed to bring a player in because Anthony Martial is a player that Erik ten Hag really likes, but he only was available for 25% of their matches last season. Weghorst came in, we saw the struggles that United had last season when Cristiano Ronaldo left, so they needed to have somebody, and it's going to be an out-and-out striker they need, and that is what Rasmus Højlund will add to this team. So I do think he'll get plenty of opportunities. It may mean at times that Marcus Rashford has to play in that number 9 role, which he favours playing on the left, but I can't see Højlund playing every match in the Premier League. But with the physical attributes he has, he definitely isn't somebody who's going to be out-muscled in the Premier League. But, of course, it will take him some adjustment.
Yeah, you can see there the Serie A top scorers. He was 20th there with Atalanta, Rasmus Højlund. But they do, Atalanta have Lee Congerton in charge of the transfers, who are making sure that he gets the maximum out of selling a player. Right, James, in terms of their transfer business in general, Manchester United, they are getting a lot of praise this summer. What have you made of it?
I think it's been really impressive. I think they feel like they've not overpaid. They feel like they've negotiated pretty well, and they've solved 3 problem areas before the start of the season, and they'll be absolutely delighted if Højlund can play this weekend in one of their pre-season matches. Firstly, David De Gea. I mean, last season was successful when it comes to the clean sheets. Nobody kept more in the Premier League, but his inability to play the ball at his feet meant that Ten Hag simply felt he had to move on, so they brought in Onana. United, they lacked that quality and depth when it came to their midfield last season, when Eriksen was injured for a long period of time, when Casemiro was suspended. So Mason Mount comes in, a Champions League winner, plenty of legs, and he'll add plenty of quality to the midfield. And then with Osimhen, as we were saying before, they simply, well, they could have signed Osimhen with Højlund. If he's the player that is going to come in, it looks very likely. They need to sign a striker. Whilst they're not buying the finished article, which I think most Manchester United fans would have wanted going into this season, they are signing a player for the future, but at least they do have options now in the forward areas.
How important is it, Sam, that they have actually, it looks like they're getting their players in before they're getting rid of players that might be surplus to requirements?
I think it's really smart business from Manchester United. We saw the window that they had last summer, and they had the areas that they wanted to fix, and we saw them go into the last few weeks and the last week to get the Casemiro done. They played over what you'd want for a player like Casemiro, even though he's had the impact that they would have wanted. I think now they're going to focus on outgoings and the players that are surplus to requirements under Erik ten Hag's system, and then they're going to look to other targets like Amrabat. We've seen him linked with Manchester United for quite a while, and I think Ten Hag will be happy with the business that Manchester United have done.
Yeah, and they are getting a lot of praise for that reason. Let's get back to Carla Ward, because she's watching this game between England and China, the last group stage game at the Women's World Cup for the Lionesses. 1-0 to England still, Carla, but are they looking completely in control?
Yeah, well and truly, I think it's been a positive start. Russo's gone again.
And the attack now. Talk us through this. What a chance. I think this system really suits us, if I'm being honest. I think you've got 3 solid centre-halves. It allows Lucy Bronze and Rach Daly to play higher up. It's causing China all sorts of problems. They can't quite work out whether to get the 2 back in. But as it stands, it's suiting us. Russo's coming out, which naturally with the wing-back either side is going to join in the attack. So it's given us abundance of attacking options. So, yeah, look, we've started very, very well. I'd like us to keep this intensity up and keep the pressure on them. And hopefully we can add to the goal tally. Just talk us through that chance. Was that brilliant defending in the end? Yeah, I would say so. Look, I think she's taken the line of Hemp when she's gone to tracker. So, look, I think it's only our second chance. So we've got to continue to be patient, continue to move them about, continue to open up little pockets and spaces. And when we do, find the gaps and look to get our attacking line in behind their back line. Carla, thank you. Right, some interesting news just into us. Well, it'll be interesting certainly to Blackburn and Luton fans, because Blackburn have turned down a 3rd offer from Luton Town for goalkeeper Thomas Kaminski. He's 30 years old, he's a Belgium international, and he really has impressed since joining Blackburn in 2020. He's an excellent goalkeeper, in fact. We understand that Luton had bid up to £2.5 million, but Blackburn want upwards of £3 million for Kaminski, so I guess it's still a case of Watch This Space. Right, coming up, as ever, on a Tuesday, we're joined by Italian football experts Mina Rizzucchi and Nicky Bandini. We will be discussing Lukaku, Højlund and much more in a few minutes. Right, time to speak to our Italian football experts. We're joined by Mina Rizzucchi and Nicky Bandini. Always great to see you two. Mina, we'll start with this one because it looks like Chelsea might be exploring the idea of a swap, Romelu Lukaku and Dusan Vlahovic with Juventus. Would that be a good deal for both parties?
That's a really tough one to answer.
I think that's a no.
It's a difficult one because it's with Lukaku, we've seen the very best of him in Serie A, but we've also seen a season in which he suffered with injury and perhaps didn't do the very best or gave his best last season until the end of the season, towards the end. And the thing is that if you remember, we were on this show when we were talking about Dusan Vlahovic at the time. Arsenal was in for him. He was this kid coming up at Fiorentina that was just scoring goal after goal. You always wondered how far he can go and how good he can be. Unfortunately, when he moved to Juventus, we didn't see that talent really fulfill his potential. And we're still waiting on him to produce. He scored 10 Serie A goals last season. And there was a worry there that perhaps he's not on that level. But I think that at the end of the day, he's still 23 years old. He's still somebody that everyone believes is going to be excellent. And you just think to yourself, isn't it better to keep somebody who's young, who has a resale value, than bringing in Lukaku, who will certainly score for you? And it seems like Max Allegri, the coach, is very in love with Lukaku, especially in a season in which there isn't any type of European football and he can dedicate himself to Serie A. But at the same time, what happens afterwards? He plays for a season. Then what's the upside? You can't really sell him for any more money. You're spending lots of money on his salary, whereas Vlahovic can really be integrated within the team. He is a Juventus fan, although now I'm starting to think Lukaku might be a bit one too. So we don't know. I think it remains to be seen whether or not it's a great deal. And for him, how is he going to cope with this team that, like, he was an Inter player. He was somebody that, you know, was racially abused by a certain group of Juventus fans. I mean, he's done all these interviews to say that he's devoted to Inter, to then play for their biggest rivals. I don't think it's going to be very comfortable for him either.
Well, we saw even this week, didn't we? This sort of, you know, speaking to fans saying, I'll never say Forza Juve. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes these things you've got to say, well, we'll see. I think the never say never would probably be a good approach for Romelu, like, right now. But Vlahovic is a fascinating case because, of course, Juventus did spend 70 million euros for him. And at the time when he signed, as Mina said, was on fire at Fiorentina. And if you look, in that last half season, so they signed him in January of 2022, in the last half season he had at Fiorentina, he scored as many goals as he has in a full season and a half at Juventus. So the talent is there. We know that there's a player who can score heaps of goals in the right environment. And there's been a feeling that his working relationship with Max Allegri, the manager, has never quite been what it could be. So I think for him, at this point in his career, where he is sort of, you know, getting into his mid-20s, like wanting to be at a different club, makes total sense. I think there's an opportunity for a club like Chelsea to get more out of that player than Juventus have been doing. And I think that there's something in the fit for Lukaku. As Mina said, he had an odd season at Inter. He went from sort of August through to March. I think he didn't score a goal from open play and then finally woke up again at the end of the season. But Lukaku would be a short-term move for Juventus to win the league this season. That's what it would be about, because they aren't in Europe and they want to win the league again. And how you would balance that economically in a deal, what Chelsea would have to pay on top of offering Lukaku to get Vlahovic, I think that's the big question for me as to whether it can be a good deal for all parties. Well,
talking of left-footed strikers, Rasmus Højlund from Atalanta, it could be worth as much as 72 million. Is he worth that?
Do you know, it's so fascinating. Mina and I were just talking about this before we came on, because if you'd asked me in April or March, even May, you know, is this a good footballer? He's someone with potential. Yes, absolutely. You know, and he turned 20 in March. He's been scoring goals in Serie A. He's got such explosiveness. He's got this. He's tall. He's about 6'3", but he's got this long torso, basically, and short legs, but that gives him this surprising explosiveness that you see when he's beating defenders. And he's got that willingness to attack the box, and he's got all the sort of physical attributes to dominate in the box, and those things stand out. But he's also only scored 9 goals in Serie A last season. And before the World Cup, when he was mostly playing off the bench, he scored 1 goal in the first half of the season in, I think it was 13 appearances. So you're asking, is this an interesting player with potential who I think has lots of promise to him? Yes, absolutely. Am I eyes wide open at the idea that someone after, you know, really half a season of scoring goals at a reasonable rate, yeah, I think it's a huge number, 72 million for a player who could work out, could be brilliant, but I don't know that I would feel confident spending that amount on him right now.
How many times have we've seen a really great player, and then obviously the amount of money spent on him is what dictates how great he has to be. So you used to look at sort of João Felix we were talking about, you know, great player, but the fee that Atletico Madrid paid for him, we have to expect explosiveness, fireworks at all stages. Atalanta's a great club in Italy when it comes to extracting money for their players. I mean, we're talking about this Højlund's fee has gone up by five times. So this is a kid that they brought in that they thought they could really nurture into being a great talent. And they have, but like it's been one season. Will he be is different to can he be. He has the potential to, but there needs to be a lot of nurturing. He was obviously come from a team that plays a system, so you always sometimes look better in a system when you have it ingrained in your head as to your movements and how everyone around you works. It's about whether or not, like, he certainly has the potential in this team of terms of what we said about his speed. But his personality is also something to be reckoned with. He really believes in himself. He's willing to work on his weaknesses. He likes to try to see what he can do with his right foot as well. He's extremely fast. He's extremely tall. And I just think that he would be someone that could really excel in the Premier League over others. But I just don't want people to think 72 and expect straight away that there's going to be goals left, right and centre. This is going to be a journey.
That is the question, because he's got the swagger, like Mina says. He backs himself, and I think there's a real possibility that he could be brilliant. But it's almost sort of cursed. We said this last week when we were talking about him, cursed by this inevitable comparison that's going to happen with Haaland, because he's got a name that sounds similar, because he looks a bit similar, because his body type's a bit similar, and because in some way there's some copycat going on. You know, like 2 years ago, no one wanted to have a classic number 9. Everyone wanted to play with a sort of more versatile front three. And it's like seeing that Haaland doing that has given permission to have an in-the-box number 9. And we'll see if he can live up to those expectations.
Carla Ward has done very well to not shout out, because the ball's in the back of the net for England, and it's good news, Carla.
It is, yes. Brilliant from Millie Bright, by the way. She's stepped in, she's intercepted, she's put a ball directly straight down the middle for Lauren Hemp, and one touch in front of her, and she slotted it home. It's a great bit of play from Millie Bright, to be fair. And I was actually going to say to you just before this happened, the back three have been brilliant. We've stopped all transitions. You see there, she's intercepted it, she's stepped in. Great little ball there from Lauren James, doing what she does best, and 2-0. But it's a really, really confident start from England. Really, really good display, and something that we've not seen this tournament yet. So, long may this continue.
Oh, hitting there. Peak at the right time. Carla, thanks for now. 2-0 to England. Right, let's talk about... it's a real striker theme here, isn't it? I mean, Gianluca Scamacca, Inter Milan want him. West Ham are saying no to the current bid. Do you think that will eventually get done?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, in all honesty, Scamacca seems to be really making it obvious that he would like to move, especially back to Italy. I think at the time everyone thought it would be Roma. We know that that's where he's from. That's what he... whether it's going to be Roma or not seems hard, because Inter seem to, despite their name, try to be creating a team that has an Italian core. They've gone for a lot of Italian players. They actually hold many of them, Barella, Bastoni, and now you're including sort of creating Scamacca, making sure that Italian core stays within the team. I think right now that there's a difference, it's a small difference between the two clubs over the price, but they're not going for a loan and then payment. They're going straight outright purchase. Around the 22 million mark. I think that obviously West Ham have a right to want a little bit more, considering what they spent last season. I think they'll eventually meet in the middle, and it'll be great for him to be at Inter just to see what Inzaghi can do, because it's a team that does really favour attacking football, and perhaps that's not something he'll get with Jose Mourinho.
We always run out of time on these. Let's try and fly through everything else, because there's loads to talk about. Victor Osimhen, all right, Al Hilal, 140 million euros. Do you think that Napoli will say yes to that?
Not enough.
No, they won't, and he doesn't want to go there either right now. You know, I think you're talking about, when we talk about big amounts of money being spent on strikers this summer, that is one of the absolute elite ones, one who I think would merit that price tag. I think Aurelio De Laurentiis is known to be a fierce negotiator. He's right now trying to get Osimhen to sign a new contract, which, from the sounds of what I'm hearing, is actually quite close, which will have a release clause in it. But I think it'll be set higher than 140 million euros. OK, what about in midfield, Franck Kessié to Juventus? They want him from Barcelona, but there's talk that Kessier's waiting to find out if Tottenham want him. Where do you think he'll go?
Yes, he does actually want the Premier League, so I think that for him it's something that he would like to try and see what he can do when it comes to the Premier League. He really did want to stay at Barcelona. Unfortunately, that just seems like they don't have room to really play him as much as he wants to be played right now. I don't think he wants to go to Juventus so much, but they've been on the phone to him. They've told him about the ideas that they have for the season, how much they want to concentrate on Serie A and what they can then plan for the future afterwards, and how he's so vital to that. So I don't know whether the talks will get him to sway his mind. He's not very expensive, but I do think he's brilliant. I do think that I don't think he's rated enough, if that's the case. And And if I'm Tottenham, I definitely want him and I would definitely be going for him. But as a Juventus fan, I hope he goes there.
Nikki and Mina have been trying to help me out with this pronunciation. The Napoli winger that Arsenal could try to sign, Kvaratskhelia.
Kvaratskhelia.
Wasn't that
You
far
can
off,
call him Kvaradonna. That's what lots of people initially do.
Thank you. Right, that's it. Okay, problem solved. Panic over. What would he offer? We know that Arsenal might have to free up some funds if they're going to sign him. It might not be particularly likely at the moment. But what would he offer to any club?
Yeah, I think this is a rumour that's come a bit out of nowhere. I think it's a bit of a baseless rumour, this one, with him going to Arsenal, because the money isn't there. He would be a very expensive signing again, someone who Napoli aren't going to let go of for cheap. But well, we saw what he could do this season at Napoli. You know, he's a creative player. He really finds those pockets of space behind the attack. He really sort of knows how to unpick a team in that. The tre quarti is what we talk about in Italy, the three quarters, and he's really, really brilliant player coming off the left side of the pitch.
But he has lived his entire life like worshipping at the altar that is Real Madrid. So that is his prime concern, is how and what I need to do to get there eventually.
Kvaradonna.
Kvaradonna.
Brilliant. Right, Nikki, Mina, thank you so much. Brilliant as ever. We will see you next week. Right, some news just into us. And Paris Saint-Germain have triggered a clause in Ousmane Dembele's contract which gives them 5 days to negotiate his transfer with Barcelona. He had a €50 million release clause in his contract until midnight last night. He wants to move to Paris Saint-Germain, but he wants to make sure Barcelona get as fair a price as possible. Paris Saint-Germain are also in talks to sign France forward Randall Kolo Muani from Eintracht Frankfurt, who we mentioned briefly earlier on. Right, on the way, we've got a development regarding Harry Kane from our colleagues in Germany.
free. So they've been toying with either dropping into a block, or at times you'll see them stepping on with a front three, which is allowing our two wing-backs to get on the ball. And only a couple of minutes ago, you saw Rach Daly, wing-back to wing-back, Lucy Bronze, great header at the back post. Obviously, it came off the woodwork, but China don't know what to do with this formation. As you can see there, it's a front three press now, and which now allows our wing-backs, they're so narrow, so compact, which gives Lucy Bronze and Rachel Daly an awful lot of space and time. So, yeah, it's an exciting one. It's suiting our players for sure. It allows us bodies up the pitch, and on transition, the three at the back are very, very comfortable.
Yeah, every time I look up, England are on the attack, as they are right now. But 2-0 at the moment to England. I should also say that Denmark have now actually taken the lead against Haiti. So at the moment, England would go through as group winners with Denmark in second place. Right, we said that there was an update from Sky in Germany about Harry Kane. Well, their reporter Florian Plettenberg has just said this. He understands that Bayern Munich's package is around £95 million. That's 95 million euros, which is £81 million. But there are possible add-ons included in that. Kane would get a contract until 2028 with options included. So that takes him to 35 years old. He would become the top earner at the club. That would replace Sadio Mane, who's on his way out. No new meeting between Bayern and Daniel Levy scheduled as yet. But all parties are confident that an agreement will be found as Bayern Munich plan to improve their offer. So that news just into us, James and Sam. And interestingly there, well, there's actually a lot of interesting things there, but that would take him to 35, Sam.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. If you're going to spend that much money on a striker, you're going to want that type of length of contract. We've seen with the players like Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lewandowski, that it doesn't necessarily mean that your career comes to an end when you go past the age of 34, especially a striker like Kane that isn't overly dependent on his pace. He wouldn't have to run as much. He's not running as much in a side like for Postecoglou. It does make it interesting about the buyback, though, because if you're going to put a buyback in that contract, he's going to be 35 years old. How much would that be? Would it make sense for him to come back? Would Kane still favour a move back to the Premier League for the record, to topple Alan Shearer? I think that's the only side of it. But I think in terms of for Bayern and the wages that they're going to be paying for him, I think 5 years is perfect.
Yeah, I think it's a real tempter, a 5-year contract, because Harry Kane's probably weighing up his options at the moment. We know that no avenue is closed off to him at the moment. And one option, of course, is for him to run down his contract and leave next summer for free. We'll have a host of suitors. But I think having a 5-year contract on the table, if that is what is the case from Bayern Munich, that's going to be very hard to turn down, because he does then have the option to compete for the Champions League, to compete for the league every single season. So you can understand Harry Kane being willing to open negotiations and talk to Bayern Munich if and when a deal is struck between the two clubs.
Yeah, there's always comparisons with Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer, by the way, retired at 36. He was still scoring goals, plenty of goals in the Premier League at that stage as well. So if this takes Harry Kane to 35, he could still be a prolific goal scorer at that age. Right, OK, we like to sometimes go through possible transfer targets that are out of contract with our out-of-contract 11. It causes a few debates in the studio, but we think that James, Sam and I have got a very, very good 11 here, OK? These are players who are currently out of contract and available for absolutely nothing. Right, James and Sam, I think the goalkeeper was a fairly simple one, but talk us through the defence.
Yeah, David De Gea was a no-brainer, really. 17 clean sheets in the Premier League last season. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, it's not really quite worked out for him over the last few seasons, but he's versatile. He can play right back, he can play in midfield as well. Sergio Ramos' record speaks for himself. Yerry Mina was at Barcelona not too long ago and was performing in the Premier League for Everton as they narrowly
that very, very late goal pretty much kept them up, didn't it?
And so that was worth its weight in gold. And then Ryan Bertrand, I think there were a host of suitors when his contract ran down at Southampton, went to Leicester. It didn't quite work out, but that's an option that you have there. So a very decent defence who offer a bit going forward as well.
Yeah, I think I probably would have gone for a 4-2-3-1 here. I would have probably put Traore on one of the wings, and I've got to be honest. Sorry, I need that team back up. I can't actually remember who's on it. Claudia, if possible. So what we'd have is in the three there, Sam. I would have probably put Traore to the right. Moura to the left and Hazard as a number 10 behind Morelos. But talk us through Oxlade-Chamberlain and Lingard, Sam.
Yeah, I think Oxlade-Chamberlain's one. Obviously, we heard what Henderson was saying at the back end of last season, you know, about how he's in the form of his life and any team that picks him up would be lucky to have him. I think Lingard as well never really worked out at Nottingham Forest. Obviously, he had the year contract, probably hoped for it to go better. But I think he would be a great option for a team that, you know, wants to be in and around the European competitions or fighting for those spots. One name that is obviously up there that I have a lot of love for is Eden Hazard. I think the injuries at Real Madrid really hampered, you know, his career there. No one expected for it to go that badly, but I'm surprised that no one has really gone in for him, and it is 3 goals for England.
Yeah, let's get back to Carla Ward. We will go back to this free transfer 11, but Carla, a 3rd goal. Talk us through it.
You thought it was too obvious. Lauren James completely unmarked on the edge of the box. You did not expect China to allow her that much time and space, but ball straight into her grasp, and she's put it straight in bottom left corner. But yeah, a bit naive, I think, from China.
Finish.
We're talking about one of the best players in the world. To give her that much time and space is absolutely ludicrous.
That's
but,
completely
great
unmarked.
finish.
Like, that was
Completely, yeah.
It seems so obvious there.
You can't quite
Especially
work
the fact
that
that
one
she
out.
scored a screamer the other day as well.
Yeah, great. How difficult is it to finish like that when the ball's rolling towards you? Because you're kind of going against the grain, I suppose.
Yeah, it's always difficult, but look, it makes it a whole lot easier if you've got no pressure on the ball. But China have got to be scratching their heads. They've got to do something at half-time, because at the minute this is an absolute whitewash. They're not getting to the ball, they're not getting tight enough, they're not looking after the ball. You know, I think there's got to be big questions asked right now of the formation. I think right now, I think she's got to be looking at changing it.
All right, 3-0 to England, approaching half-time. Carla, thank you. Let's just finish off our free transfer 11, and the striker in the end we went for Alfredo Morelos, James, who was wanted for decent money a couple of seasons ago, and then it just went wrong at Rangers towards the end, but we know how good he can be.
Absolutely. Surprised no one snapped him up yet. I mean, he's got a brilliant record, and things just didn't seem to quite work out with the new manager coming in at Rangers. It was felt like the right time for them to part ways. But there's a number of players that you could have also had in that team. Manuel Lanzini, Axel Tuanzebe, I think, has got a huge future ahead of him. Things just haven't worked out in the last few years. Bearing in mind, he captained Manchester United at such a young age as well. Ross Barkley, perhaps he needs the right club now to try and salvage his career. And Tom Davies, I'd be surprised there's not any Premier League clubs interested in him, because he's a brilliant character, and I think he's somebody who could help plenty of dressing rooms, and of course he's got plenty of ability as well. But I think we've got a decent team there, quite attacking. I'm not sure how it would stand up. It would be like a Ange Postecoglou will beat you 4-3 rather than 1-0. But yeah, some decent players on the market and available.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, Tiemi Bakayoko, Nampalys Mendy, Jan Mvila, Roberto Pereira, and all I'm on here is the midfielders list. So loads of players out there out of contract and available for free. Right, still to come, the latest from Chelsea as they go in search of a new midfielder and a defender. I'm going to fly through another few teams because quite a lot of deals getting done under the radar even. And Crystal Palace, James, there could be quite a lot going on this week for them.
Yeah, very interesting development. Roy Hodgson has been speaking and he said there's a slight doubt whether Michael Elise will stay at the club this summer. We know he's attracting interest from the likes of Man City and Chelsea. He'll actually miss the start of the season with a hamstring injury. But what was interesting, Hodgson said Palace have a fight on our hands to make sure he stays with us this summer. In terms of incomings, they need senior players, and they need a replacement for Wilfried Zaha, who has joined Galatasaray on a free, and they're in advanced talks to sign the young Brazilian attacker, Matias Franca. Now, he's understood to be ready to undergo a medical, and Palace have agreed a £26 million fee with Flamengo, and all being well, he'll then fly to England to complete the move. So Palace have been in negotiations for a number of weeks around this signing, and it looks like they've got their man. They need a striker. They've struggled for goals from their strikers in recent times, so perhaps, despite the fact only being 19 years old, he can make a real impact this season.
Yeah, the quotes from Hodgson about Elise were given to The Athletic, by the way, and I should also say, from Reading's point of view, because Crystal Palace bought him from Reading, because they met his release clause, there is no sell-on. And Reading could have really done with that, but they would not be getting one if Elise does go. Right, that brings us on to Liverpool, Sam.
Yeah, they've been quite active this window. They've got rid of a lot of players that were on the fringes, with Oxlade-Chamberlain, Keita, Milner leaving as well now, Henderson and Fabinho, who are the more senior players, and they've been linked with. Obviously, we've seen the rumours with Lavia. They need to, meet the fee that Southampton want. But in my opinion, I think that because of the experience that they've lost in midfield, it's probably worth getting another midfielder that is, of the age range of either Fabinho or a bit younger, that can, slot in and be a leader in that midfield. Also, I don't know if they're looking for right back, but when I looked at their defence, I saw that they don't really have any cover for Alexander Arnold, and I think
especially if he plays in midfield as well.
Exactly, and obviously now they've got Calvin Ramsey, who went out on loan as well. So I think they could probably do with another right back. I spoke to a few Liverpool fans. They're saying that they could do with another centre back. Matip and Joe Gomez have been quite injury prone. Joe Gomez isn't as relied on as he was in the past. Konate, Van Dijk is obviously their captain now, but he's had a few injuries that has affected him, especially last season. So, yeah, I think they'll be active in looking for another midfielder and maybe a few defenders. Yeah,
it is Preston that Calvin Ramsey has gone on loan to for the season. And Fulham closing in on a winger, James?
Yeah, they've got a verbal agreement with Everton over the signing of Demarai Gray. He won't be allowed to leave, though, until Sean Dyche gets some more bodies through the door at Goodison Park. And Marco Silva has made Demarai Gray one of his top transfer priorities in this summer. They've waited a little while to get business done in the summer, but with Calvin Bassey joining recently, it feels like they're starting to get names through the door. Personal terms aren't expected to be an issue either. They need attacking reinforcements because Dan James went back to Leeds. Manor Solomon's gone to Spurs. Also targeting Callum Hudson-Odoi as well.
James, if you'd seen Carla Ward's face while you were speaking there, it wasn't anything to do with Fulham, it was to do with a fourth goal for England, Carla.
Didn't want to interrupt you then. What a goal. Lauren James, take a bow. 3 goals in 2 games. Absolutely sensational. Literally on the stroke of half-time. Ball drops to her. No mistake whatsoever. And you just watch this back. Touch-up, again, completely unmarked. She tries to get out to her, but this is some finish.
The ball looped into the area, headed away, but not far enough.
Set from Lucy Bronze. One touch, left foot, bang, top corner. Brilliant from Lauren James. She's sensational. She's been absolutely brilliant this season, and she's starting to deliver. Left out in the first game, lots of question marks as to why. She's come in 3 goals in 2 games now, and you can see why she's so important to England.
How satisfying is it for a manager that, one, you decide, right, I'm going to pick her, and she does really well, but also I'm going to change the formation and you're 4-0 up at half-time?
Yeah, listen, Serena deserves an awful lot of credit for this performance in the first half. To change it suits the players that we've got. It's interesting with Katie Zellum as well, because she's not so much getting on the ball, but what she is doing is occupying the 2 centre forwards, which is allowing us space in. Well, here we go.
Oh no! So yeah, just talk us through what's happening here. The referee's going to the monitor. Why?
Not entirely sure.
So there's a VAR check going on here, but on the goal from Lauren James, how upsetting would this be if that is ruled out? Because it was such a fantastic goal. It's a possible offside here. OK, so is she interfering with play, I guess, is the question.
Absolutely
She was walking back. Who was that in the offside position?
Yeah, second. Yeah, it's offside. It's offside. She's come back. She's interfering on the second phase. It's offside. I'll be very, very, very surprised if this is given.
Yeah, we'll wait with you to get the final decision. But how much will that hurt Lauren James? Who thought, what a goal, it's going to be chalked off. I mean, I've still scored it, but doesn't count. Especially
because she'll be eyeing up a hat trick because China have just got nowhere near England today, and I think that she can. This system's allowing her to get on the ball a lot, but yeah, I can't see this standing. But listen, England have been sensational in this first half, and I think the challenge now and the message from Serena will be: can we go again, and can we be relentless and ruthless in our approach in the second half and deliver for 90 minutes? Because it's something that we haven't seen since the Euros, a full 90-minute convincing performance. So far, so good. 45 minutes of quality. We'll be looking for another. Here she goes.
Well, yeah. Is it going to be ruled out or not? Here we go. She's taking her time. She's looked at the monitor for a long time. Colin, let us know when you know what the decision is, because we need to know whether it's going to be 4-0 or 3-0.
No goal. Lucy Bronze offside, as expected.
OK. All right, so it's still 3-0 to England at half-time. Still a convincing first half, but unfortunate for Lauren James there. Right, we talked Palace, we talked Liverpool, we talked Fulham. Let's get to Chelsea now, because they're in the market for a new goalkeeper. They're interested, in Brighton's Robert Sanchez. One source claims an approach has been made. Both a loan and permanent deal are under discussion. Chelsea are looking for a goalkeeper to provide competition for Kepa. Reports in several outlets overnight suggesting also that Levi Colwill is on the verge of signing a new 6-year deal. Let's talk about Colwill then, Sam, because we talked a lot about Sanchez in Good Morning Transfers. How good is this news for Chelsea if Colwill's staying? I
think it's really good. I know that there was a lot of speculation whether he was going to see out his contract at Chelsea or whether, there was interest from Brighton, from Liverpool as well. And I think after him coming back from his loan from Huddersfield last season, he expected to be in the team and in the competition to play centre-back, and then Tuchel obviously allowed for him to go on loan to Brighton, where he thrived and everyone saw the quality that he has. He did really well for England under-21s at the Euros. They didn't concede a goal as well, and during this pre-season he's come straight from that, come into pre-season, and he slotted straight in. Poch's said so many good things about him. He's a player that can do everything. I was looking at some of his stats earlier, and genuinely he stands with some of the best defenders in the league with every single metric in terms of defending, in terms of progressive passes as well, the type of football that Pochettino wants to play. So I think this is going to be amazing news. It's almost going to be like a new signing for Chelsea.
Yeah, he was absolutely excellent for Brighton last season. Sam and James, thank you. Carla Ward's going to be staying in for the second half. But more transfer news later on, because the transfer show is at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. with Dharma Sheth and Michael Bridge this evening. Right, it is half-time in the game between England and China. England 3-0 up. We will keep you up to date with the second half.